As a photographer, traveling is one of the most exciting things you can do. You get to see all these amazing places and capture these memories with your camera. But it's also really difficult. I mean, we all know the feeling of coming home from a day of shooting and thinking our photos didn't really capture what it felt like to be there. And I know that feeling. Last week, when I traveled to Hamburg, Germany, I had to overcome this feeling myself. I went there to visit friends and family, so I only had 3 days to capture the feeling of this city with my photos. So in this video, I'll show you 4 things that will help you take photos that don't just show where you traveled, but how it actually felt to be there. Okay, so before I went out shooting, I had to figure out what I was even looking for. So when I think of Hamburg, I think of lakes and rivers, nature, historic buildings, and cute little city centers. So I focused on these as my main themes. And at first, things were going pretty well. But by the end of day 1, I was not only running out of battery, but also out of ideas. But more on that later. So for day 1, I decided to explore the Steindamm area, which is a part of town I've never really been to before. And after taking some warm-up shots, I got this one that I like for 2 reasons. Number 1 is the statue, which captures a bit of the historic character of the city. And secondly, the seagull is a nice little detail that shows that this location is near the water. So it combines 2 of the themes I wanted to focus on, which is a pretty good start. But there's one mistake in this photo that I'd fix if I could. And that is that the top of the statue is covered by the trees. I tried crouching down to get some distance between the leaves and the statue, but I didn't really like the overall perspective this version has. I ended up circling around the statue and got this shot, which feels a little bit cleaner. Another thing I wanted to focus on to capture the feeling of this city was to take photos of building facades. Simply because Hamburg does have a lot of buildings that look so historic, and I just love it when a city has that. It makes me feel like I'm traveling through time. First, I got some shots that seem kinda random, but they do serve an important function that I'm gonna get to in a minute. After trying out different quote-unquote bad shots, I found this place. The light just fell perfectly and the railing creates a nice leading line towards the garage door. All in all, this just feels like a cozy place to live, and brick buildings always feel like they are from a different time. And this shot is the reason these random shots from before are important, because they document the little things that you noticed. So your photos capture your perspective of a place rather than just ticking off famous landmarks. After exploring the Steindamm area, I ended up in this cute little district center where I got one of my favorite shots of this trip that I'm gonna show you in a minute. I feel like these areas often have such a calm vibe to them, almost as if you were in a different city. Before I show you my favorite version of this shot, let's break down what I like about the composition and what I don't like about the other versions of this shot. So first of all, I like how simple it is. This porch roof creates an interesting frame, and the blue color is a nice contrast to the overall warm colors of this image. The truck on the left makes this photo very clean and simple because it hides any distractions on the left side. What I don't like about the bad versions of this shot is that there were just too many people walking around at the same time. In this shot, for example, the lady on the right is just too distracting. So I waited patiently until only one person was in the shot. And then I just turned my camera to the left side to exclude the people standing on the right side. What I love about this version is that this lady is interacting with the restaurant. Maybe she's looking for a place for her and her friends. And that just feels like such a real moment. Another theme I noticed were balconies and plants. I didn't expect to make this a theme for my photos, but that's what happens when you allow yourself to walk around without a very strict plan. You end up noticing these things and details that make a place feel like home. After some more wandering, I arrived at the Alster, a very popular lake where people love to spend time by the water and on the water. So I decided to capture that feeling because the lake is part of the identity of the city. But this is where I started running into 2 issues. Firstly, I was on my last battery and it was already around 50% by now. so I had to be a little more selective with what I shoot to preserve some battery. First I found these two. I just liked how this elderly couple was enjoying their time by the water. I placed them in the lower third of this photo to create some space between them and this pier. And I think I had the right idea, but in this case the shot just doesn't work out as well as I imagined. But a couple minutes later I got this one, which is way better. I like how this guy is leaning backwards like he's just enjoying the breeze. I framed him between the ground and the pier so he stands out from the bright water behind him. All these little details help capture that serene feeling of spending some time by the Alster. The second issue in this location was that at some point I realized that I kept taking the same kinds of shots in this area. Either people sitting by the water or boats on the water. I did get a couple of shots that I liked, but my photos lacked the variety that really captured the feeling of a city by the water. So on day 2 I decided to make a quick visit to the Binnenalster to get some more varied shots around the theme of lake and rivers before I moved on to my second theme. So to recap day 1, I got one good shot that captures the historic feeling of the city, 4 shots for the homey feeling of district centers, which was enough for this project, got 1 shot for being close to nature, and I got 2 good shots that capture the feeling of the city being close to water. I wanted to finish this category first. So on day 2 I started by taking a couple of shots of these boats, but I felt like I was picking back up right where I stopped. These photos are okay, but they feel a bit boring and don't leave room for the viewer's imagination. I once heard a photographer say that a good photo asks more questions than it answers. So I decided to follow that advice, and I got some more boat shots that turned out much better in my opinion. I found this reflection, for example. I like how it creates this abstract version of the boats that creates a bit more intrigue. So instead of only taking shots of your entire subject, taking a photo of details or abstract views on your subject can help make your photos a little bit more interesting. After getting these shots, I felt like I had enough to cover the topic of lakes and rivers, so I moved on to the next theme, nature. And for that I went to Planten und Blumen, one of the local parks. The name literally translates to plants and flowers, so I think that was the perfect place for my theme. And the park is also a great getaway if you're trying to escape the busy city for a while. I like how this shot combines the aspect of nature and city. The building in the background creates a nice juxtaposition, like city and nature blend into each other, which is very much how Hamburg feels. But when I started taking photos in the park, I made one mistake. I got overwhelmed by the many pretty flowers, so I just started snapping away. Which is probably why these photos feel more like snapshots. So what I like to do to solve that is to capture the interactions between people and their environment. That way your photos not only show the location you're at, but also what it feels like being there. After walking through the entire park and back, I found a cute little surprise. I was so happy that I got this little guy while filming that I didn't really manage to get a decent photo of him. I just got one earlier that is nothing spectacular, but still kinda cute. After leaving Planten und Blumen, I returned to the Billenalster to get some final shots by the water, because I realized I had no establishing shot yet that shows in what place this photo project takes place. And I'm pretty happy with the one I got. It has the Alster Lake and the 3 landmarks in the background. The Michel Church, the Town Hall Tower and the St. Nikolai ruins. All these things combined make this photo feel like Hamburg. I also think this shot really feels like Hamburg. There are so many historic looking bridges and ships on the Alster that it just feels right capturing them in one photo. The bridge also creates a nice frame around the boat. If there's one thing I could change about the photo, it's that I didn't include more of the bridge on the right side because it feels a little bit cut off. By the end of day 2, I got all the shots I needed to capture the feeling of a city that is close to water. I also got enough shots that feel like the city has a lot of nature. But I still only had one shot that captured the historic feeling of this city. I only had one day left, so for the final day I decided to focus my entire energy on capturing that feeling. So on day 3 I went to the Speicherstadt, Hamburg's old warehouse district where a lot of trade happened in the late 19th century. For my first shot I got this one. I think the modern sightseeing bus creates a nice juxtaposition with the historic buildings in the background. Nothing too fancy, but it's an okay start. But I quickly realized how difficult it is to photograph the historic feeling of this place. I tried focusing on the facades again because all these buildings have this historic character. But the shots didn't really feel like they captured the character of this place. I felt like I was missing something, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. So I just kept searching, and a couple minutes later I found a much better composition that made me realize what I was missing. The photo gives you context. So instead of just showing you the historic facades of this place, this photo shows you what you can experience there. You can actually explore this location and wander between these historic buildings. I think that makes this image much better than the previous ones. So my advice here is that when you try to photograph your theme, don't go for the obvious shot. And instead try using your location as a backdrop for a specific subject that the viewer can relate to. That way you not only capture what the place looks like, but also what it feels like to be there. I love how this shot captures what the Speicherstadt was built for. I just imagine a merchant from the 19th century rowing his boat to these stairs and unloading his goods to sell them in the city. I actually have no idea whether these stairs were used for that, but that's what this shot feels like anyway. After leaving the Speicherstadt, I found this location that really shows what kind of city Hamburg is. These ships sitting between modern buildings isn't something you see in every city, and it gives you the feeling that Hamburg is a port city. At the same location, I found these shots that really combine the history of the city with its modern architecture. I like how the people walking by just blend into this place as if they are walking through history. So, by the end of day 3, I got the final images that feel like they capture the historic character of Hamburg. And if you want to learn how to take photos that capture what you feel and not just what you see, you can check out my guide via the link in the description. And with that, my little trip to Hamburg came to an end. And I gotta admit, it was pretty exhausting and also really difficult, but I think I did a decent job of capturing how this city feels. Other than that, I hope this video helped you out, and I'll see you next week.